LoreWarrior Armour double feature, Goblin infantry support vehicle, and disclaimer again, if you hear any birdsong or anything in the background, I apologise. It's been very warm last couple of weeks, the bro is suffering from it, and so we're keeping the windows and doors open, so if you hear any birdsong or anything like that, I do apologise, but it's just way too hot to have it open. Anyway, overview. Based on an obscure 20th century concept, the original Goblin was a unique design, a tank with integral infantry support. Though it generally fared well on the battlefield, Goblin engagements with power-suited infantry during the Clan War prompted Johnston Industries to redesign the vehicle. The new Goblin is classed as an infantry support vehicle, intended to transport and support up to a platoon of infantry. A prototype saw action with the AFFC during the last months of the Clan War, and full production began in early 3053. Capabilities. The new Goblin features weapon systems reconfigured to provide optimal infantry support. A large Sutel pulse laser replaces the original design's blaze fire laser, trading range for accuracy. Together with a Harpoon 6 missile system, the Sutel provides effective firepower against power-armoured troops. A pair of miniguns serve as a last line of defence. The refitted Goblin also makes extensive use of new armour compounds that provide 30% more protection than the original armour. The substitution of a light fusion engine for the Longway ICE power plant also enabled the Goblin designers to increase the vehicle's overall armour tonnage. The additional armour, combined with the new main-fire anti-missile system, has drastically increased the Goblin's battlefield survivability. Unfortunately, the limited ammunition supply for the AMS restricts its use to the first or second volley directed against the vehicle. Deployment. The refitted Goblin first saw action on the world of Sien during recent actions in the Sana March. Marek forces destroyed the aerospace assets of the 2nd Federated Commonwealth RCT, enabling regiments of Makaran's armoured cavalry to drop onto the planet and strike at the 2nd RCT's ground forces. The 2nd had been using the new Goblin for more than 4 years, and the unit's commander, Marshal Thome, was intimately familiar with their capabilities. The Marshal threw most of the Goblins into the battle that took place in the city of Chengde, where bitter street fighting devastated units on both sides. The close-quarters urban battle made an ideal test for the Goblins and their infantry, though attrition gradually reduced their numbers. They did manage to inflict considerable damage on the mercenary troops, though. When hostilities officially ended in mid-December, only 7 out of 24 Goblins remained operational. 3058 Upgrade Overview. Based on an obscure 20th century concept, the original Goblin was a unique design amongst Innisphere battle tanks, since it carried its own small infantry support unit. Though it generally fared well on the Succession War battlefields, Goblin engagements with power suit infantry during the Clan invasion prompted Johnston Industries, the Goblin's main manufacturer since the first days of the First Succession War, to redesign the whole tank. The new Goblin entered service in the former Federated Commonwealth in early 3053 and was classed as an infantry support vehicle, rather than a medium tank, since it's intended to transport and support up to a platoon of infantry. Capabilities. The Goblin's weapon systems are configured to provide optimal close-range infantry support fire. A turret-mounted large Sutel pulse laser is the Goblin's main weapon system, and combining accuracy and firepower is especially effective against hostile power-armoured troops. The Harpoon 6 missile system and the 2 Johnston miniguns enable the Goblin to fend off conventional infantry. When combining Pulse Laser and SRM Launcher, the Goblin is able to threaten enemy battlemechs or tanks. Almost 10 tons of Duralex light ferrofibrous armour make the Goblin one of the most rugged designs of its weight class, while the main-fire AMS system increases survivability even more. Unfortunately, the limited ammunition supply for the AMS restricts its use to the first 3 or 4 volleys directed against the vehicle. The Goblin's only major weakness is its lack of long-range weapons and its low speed, forcing many commanders to combine Goblins with other fighting vehicles like the Hunter light support tank to provide the long-range firepower that they need to approach the enemy line. Deployment. The first major action that Goblin saw after the new version was introduced to the AFFC troops was in 3057 on the world of Sien in the Sana March. After Marek forces had destroyed the 2nd Federated Commonwealth RCT's aerospace assets, regiments of Makaran's armoured cavalry dropped onto the planet and assaulted the RCT's ground forces. The 2nd Fedcom RCT's commander, Marshal Thome, threw most of the Goblins into the battle about the city of Chengde, where bitter street fighting devastated units on both sides. The close-quarters urban battlefield was ideal ground for the Goblins and their infantry, though attrition gradually reduced their numbers. They did manage to inflict considerable damage on the Capellan mercenary troops. When hostilities between the Federated Commonwealth and the Marek and Lao attackers officially ended in mid-December 3057, only 7 out of the 24 goblins remained operational, but the trial by fire was a success, and the new design had proved its advantages for the first time. During the Fedcom Civil War, goblins fought in almost every battle, since the majority of the units hailed from the Federated Sons fielding goblins as the backbone of their conventional regiments. Goblins saw especially heavy action on the urban battlefields of Tikhograd and New Moscow on Tikhonov, and during the battle for New Sirtis, where the goblins rolled directly from the assembly line into the battle. Crows. Variants. Johnson Industries built several prototypes of Goblin tanks mounting long-range weapons during the Fedcom Civil War, but none of them had been mass-produced until now. The most common prototype replaced the Sutel Large Pulse with a diverse optics medium ER laser and a Farfire medium LRM-10 missile rack with 12 packs of rockets. Notable crews: Sergeant Thomas Becker, Corporal Cassandra Mitchell, and Private First Class Ian Bieber. Sergeant Becker and his 2 crewmen immediately volunteered to aid the disaster response teams following the nuclear catastrophe that struck Tharkad on December 5, 3067. Despite being ill-equipped for the nuclear wasteland that they would be sent to, the Goblin and its crew arrived at Tharkad City within an hour of the initial explosion and evacuated civilians, protected medical and foodstuff convoys, and cleared the rubble around the Ground Zero area to enable the radiation control teams to reach the melted reactor core. After 2 weeks of constant work, Sergeant Becker and Private First Class Bieber broke down due to radiation sickness and had to be evacuated. Sergeant Becker died within a few hours due to radiation exposure, while quick treatment saved the life of Bieber. Corporal Mitchell battled through an aggressive form of leukemia months later, and all 3 crew were personally decorated with various grades of the Alliance Medal of Honor by Peter Steiner-Davian. I see the little Goblin. So, the Goblin is a 45-ton tracked vehicle with a power plant called a Fireheart 180 Fusion. It has a cruise speed of 43 and a flank speed of 65 kph. Its armour is Duralex Light Ferrofibrous. Armament is a single Sutel Precision Line large pulse laser, 2 Johnston miniguns, 1 Harpoon 6 SRM rack, and 1 main fire point defense AMS. Manufactured by Johnson Industries, unsurprisingly. Her primary factory is on New Sirtis, and its communication system is a Comutech XL. Targeting and tracking is provided by Blazefire Tracker with range check. Translates to a cruise of 4, flank of 6, with 10 heat sinks in total, its weapons being mounted in the turret for the large pulse, the 2 machine guns in the front of the vehicle with 100 turns of fire, has an SRM-6 also in the turret with 15 rounds of fire, and the AMS is in the body with 12 rounds of fire. There's also infantry counted since they sit in the back, or the front. I think it's the front, yeah, the front opens and the infantry run out. Armour-wise, it's got 40 on the front, which makes sense considering it needs to have that protection for the infantry inside, 32 on the sides, 26 on the rear, and 40 on the turret, so it's pretty well protected for a 45-ton vehicle, and capable of doing a fair amount of damage. On the Tabletech series that I sort of play semi-regularly with a bunch of friends, a friend of mine, Naman, has made several models of the Goblin in different variants that have popped out during the years of Battletech's history. So SRM variant, LRM variant, laser variant, all those kind of things. And it's a groovy little tank. It's very, very flexible. You can bring out a whole bunch of them and have them doing different roles on the field. And yeah, the fact that it can also roll in with a bunch of infantry just to make lives even more difficult. But it's also a good little objective vehicle as well, where you can have the idea that the players are escorting a group of Goblin tanks to the front line, for instance, so they can disgorge infantry, or maybe an assault team that are going to basically try and break into a fortified position. So maybe the players have to escort the tanks to there, or weathering the fire of defensive positions, taking out the defensive positions. The Goblin tanks get inside, they disgorge the infantry start battling inside the position, and then the players are having to hold the outer perimeter, preventing any sort of rescue force from being able to help the beleaguered defenders, that kind of thing, or then maybe just protecting the tanks while the infantry get out of there, get back in the tanks. The players have to escort them back off the field. It's a simple objective, but you could do a lot with it, for instance, and the Goblins are more than capable of being able to take a few hits on the way. They won't pop instantly. Pretty decent armor, and they can do a decent job defending themselves against anything close up, but yeah, it's a cool little tank, and I'm generally not a fan of the artwork in the 3058 book, being from this top-down perspective. It doesn't quite give you the right angle. You don't really see photographs of tanks in real life of being like, oh, we'll take it from this weird high angle at the right. It doesn't give you the right idea of the impression of the actual tank itself. It would have been nicer to have seen the updated art from a different position. I'm sure by now there is probably an Ill-Clan recognition guidebook that has a much better and more up-to-date image of that, which will be in this video anyway, if it does exist. But yeah, that's it. That's the Goblin infantry tank with probably a crow that you heard going around, because there's a couple of them that have decided that the trees around where we live is now their territory, and they're making good on their threats against the other avian life forms around us. So yeah, Goblin infantry tank. It's a cool one. I like it, and I like all of you too. Thank you very much for watching and listening. I guess it is. And I hope you have a good week. And yeah, we'll see you next time. Bye bye.